Welcome to Dad Space. Excited to have you back again. You ready, guys? Get ready to get fit. You ready to do some push-ups and exercise? And I'm pretending like I'm exercising. Gareth Nock is here today. Gareth is going to whip us in shape as a dad. Gareth is one of those guys that are like, I'm healthy and you should be too. And I'm like, yes, sign me up. Gareth Nock is here on the podcast talking about his business and the bigger business, being a dad and all the joys that come along with that. Join me, Gareth Nock, Dad Space. Here we go. So Gareth Nock is with us. Here we go. Are you guys ready? You ready, right? Oh, okay. I'll stop talking. Gareth is here on Dad Space. Okay. All right. So, when you get a podcaster to coming on your podcast, it's the easiest thing ever. No offense to my other guests, but Gareth is here today. Gareth Nock is a podcaster. He does all kinds of stuff. He's also a dad. Gareth, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Dave. I really appreciate you having me on as a guest. Yes, I love to do a bit of podcasting. I definitely love being a dad and many other things I get to do. And I'm very grateful of having those things in my life because it's something I truly enjoy and truly love doing.
Okay, all right. So let's bring people up to date with our conversation. Where are you in the world? And tell me a little bit about Gareth Nock.
So I am in Stouffville, Ontario. So a little, for anyone that isn't sure, we're like 40 minutes northeast of Toronto. So kind of little town still. Get reminded of this because we still have rural hydro lines that go out every time we have a storm. So it's still a little-ish town, although there's 50,000 people here, I think. But we live here, my wife and my daughter. And a little bit about me. I'm a perfectly flawed individual that loves the world of health and fitness. Very passionate and very grateful that I get to spend my days helping other people. I run my own fitness business and I've been in the industry 22 years now. Dad of a 5-year-old, which is my absolute favorite thing to do and I adore doing. And produce and host a podcast, which is aligned to our business. And really, apart from that, I love being around my family. And, I kind of built a life around that for that reason.
That's great. And so we're both in Ontario, which is great. Like we could probably go hang out at Timmy's and get a double together or something. It's I love not only the podcast world, but then when you can find somebody that's in your area of the world, it's even better. So like I've been talking to people around the world and you're like, wow, I'm in Bali and now I'm here in Ontario. And I'm like, wow, this is great. This is so awesome. So as one fellow Canadian podcaster to another, welcome. So happy to have you. Let's talk a little bit about your business before we get talking dad stuff. I know that feels weird, but I want to share, like I got your website up on the screen as we're talking. Tell me a little bit about what you do so people can kind of connect with that side of you as well.
Yeah. So the business is kind of picture a fitness studio, a boutique fitness studio, but we're totally online. So everything is virtual. And, we kind of offer that boutique experience. We lean towards our small group personal training, basically. So it's kind of that boutique experience. If anyone listening's ever experienced, those smaller kind of, rather than the big commercial gyms, but those smaller boutique fields, we basically run that on a virtual platform. So, we have our studio set up at our house and we predominantly help busy parents that want to move more and feel great. And, other busy dads who find it hard to get that movement in. We wanted to build something convenient and something that also, generated results for people and gave that structure, routine, consistency, all the things that we need to kind of thrive as parents, as anybody, but particularly as parents in what we do. And we're live schedule. We work weekly with all of our members, and we also offer some other services on top of that too, nutritional coaching and mobility-based training and heaps of kind of one-to-one services that come on top of that as different packages. So that's what I do all day long.
Knockacademy.com. I'm on here right now. And so does this have any relation to the global pandemic and everybody going online? Is this kind of timed with this, or was this before that?
Good question. And there's kind of there's two pivotal points in this. And one being the catalyst, I guess, of the business was, yes, definitely going online. I worked for a big corporation in health and fitness. I had a national role that I really loved in kind of upskill and education, and was doing that right up until kind of March 2020. And then it kind of changed. I was fortunate to still have my job, but it very much changed the direction of what I was doing. So it led me on a bit of a different path, and something that, to be honest, I didn't embrace, because it wasn't something that I wanted to do. And I kind of got to that point in my life where I'm okay sometimes taking the harder choice if it gets me more of what I want. And I hadn't done that enough in my life. So it was a good realization that I could step away from a job, a title, security. And then it actually came full round. Like in that first year of, the pandemic, we kind of opened gyms and closed gyms, and I worked a bit and then I didn't. And then it got to the point where I had an extended period where the business was really struggling, where I was off for a few months just because there wasn't the resources to keep everybody. And I did a bit of soul searching. I was training some of my clients and my network online that I'd had over the years, helping out and just, having basically something to do and wanting to share my passion. And I kind of thought, you know what, I could probably just do this on my own, because I'm really enjoying this part. And the thought of going back to something that wasn't really what I envisioned in a job just wasn't filling me with joy. And to be honest, completely transparent, I had a lot of health concerns. And strangely enough, when I made the big decision and stepped away from a lot of that stress that came from not living my purpose, not stress that the job had put on me necessarily, but the stress of having to handle things that I didn't really want to do, I stepped away from that, and suddenly, I'm in the best health of my life. So it made a big difference, and it, really showed me that, our mental and our emotional state really affects our physical health more than I'd ever realized. Yeah. So that was kind of the reason the business became, what it was. And, that aligned really well. When I did that soul searching, I realized that I adored being a dad. I wanted to be around for those moments. I didn't want to miss stuff. I'd been traveling a lot previously. And I was like, what can I do that means I get up every day and share my passion, but I'm also here and I'm able to be a dad? And this was the perfect solution. I work in school hours for the most part, and I get to hang out with my little girl the rest of the time, which is awesome.
Amazing. Okay, so before we jump to family, I know, one more plug. Got to get him in here because it's important. Tell me about the podcast and how the podcast serves your business in that bridge between the two.
Yeah, for sure. So podcasting was a bit of a natural thing for me. So actually back in 2020, when originally gym shut down, the world kind of came to a pretty epic stop right in time, and everything shut down. I'd been a podcast guest a few times on a friend of mine, and he had a podcast. And basically, long story short, we evolved this podcast into being something more. There was more channels. There was lots of recordings. We were co-hosting. We brought lots of other people in, and we developed this, amazing podcast. We're now still recording. We're on a bit of a hiatus right now, but we're at like 300 episodes of that. And it's very much a lifestyle-based conversational podcast, taking deep dives into many topics around life. And I just got involved in it because I like to talk. I like, digging into people's journeys and being a coach for a long time. So I was already doing that. And then when we started the business, I was like, what's a great marketing tool? I was like, well, I already know exactly how to start a podcast, edit a podcast, record a podcast. I've got a microphone. I was like, probably make a podcast. So that's where it kind of came from. My wife and my business partner just said, well, if all I've got to do is just talk into the microphone, I can do that. I'm not doing the rest of it. But if you do the heavy lifting, I can be involved in it. So she kind of came on board and actually was quite a natural at it. And now we have the expertly named Knock Knock, Who's There podcast, named after the two of us. And it basically is a outlet for two things. One, educating busy parents that want to move more and feel great, and it's a free resource for them. So it's something that supports our business and generates us leads. Yeah. Secondly, it is also a bit of a industry for me, a bit of a fight back against and everyone listening would have seen this, the before and after pictures that, fitness professionals and fitness companies have. And listen, I personally, these work really, really well for some people. And for some people, they're a great inspiration. However, for me personally, and for our market, we deal a lot more with, like I said, busy parents that want to feel good, and feel good isn't always a picture. So for us, we get our members on, and the members have conversations and tell us their story. So it's like a long format testimonial
Nice.
about their experiences. So yeah, and we love to just chat with them, find out. Some of them live in different provinces, in different countries. I've never met them, so it's nice to dig in and have a real long format conversation with those people and learn more about them.
It's a nice bridge between the business and speaking with your clients and speaking with your potential audience. It's super. I love a podcaster, right? It's just I'm a huge fan of podcasting, and to have something that works for your business, super smart. Okay, let's switch gears. This is Dad Space. This is a podcast for dads by dads. You qualify. So here we go. Tell me a little bit about your dad story. I think when we talked originally, you were sharing that you've moved to this community and you really don't have the social and family circle being in this community that you might really appreciate or value. And you guys are kind of a little bit on an island, I guess, as a family, and what that's meaning to you personally. But let's start with your dad's story. You keep talking about this wonderful daughter of yours. So tell me more. Let's go.
So, well, we'll go back to the beginning. I was never sure that I wanted to be a parent. I'd thought about it. It crossed my mind. However, I'll share now the first person to hold her the minute she was born was probably the third time I'd held a baby in my entire life, and I was 35 at the time. So it was a very alien thing to me, and I hadn't really ever embraced it. And I think it was deep rooted mental stuff for me. Like I didn't feel like I deserved that privilege, or I felt like it was something I couldn't control, and I'm not great with not being in control. So something I've had to really work on. So it was an interesting journey, but it felt right at the time when we had the conversation and we decided we wanted to start a family. It just felt right. And, trusting your guts, an interesting concept for a lot of people, but actually having done a lot of study in nutritional science and, how the body works, is there's actually a lot of research that supports that your gut is very, very tightly connected to your brain. And sometimes you really do just have to trust it. That's not just a saying. There is some actual science that backs that up. So yeah, I started my journey and, as a parent, and just, I fell in love with everything, the process, the kind, I guess it was kind of like coaching people, coaching a little person and, taking them through, guiding them, and a lot of what I'd done. So I kind of fell in love with that role. And I'm very fortunate. I'll share this. And I know a lot of dads listening will have experienced this or seen this with other people. I was very fortunate to have a wife and a partner that gave me, and I don't know if it was even conscious, but it wasn't spoke about, but gave me 100% permission to be absolutely useless, not have any idea what I was doing, and figure it out. And I think she was much in the same spot, although she has a very much younger brother that she, did a lot of kind of, caring for when he was younger. So she'd had some experience, but I know that a lot of dads don't get that and don't get that permission kind of, whether it's verbally or not, whether it's, conscious or not. But, just from many conversations I've had where I hear people say that that women feel like they can't leave their kids at home with their dad, or they can't go away for the weekend, or I can't leave them to bath them or do anything, put them to bed. And sometimes I feel like if we were given the permission sometimes, and that, every situation is different for sure, but if we were just given the permission, consciously or unconsciously, to fail at those things and figure it out, because I had no idea what I was doing, but you know what? I say I'm doing a pretty good job now. So I was very fortunate in those early stages to have that. And it made me learn how to do everything via a very imperfect journey, I guess.
Okay, yeah. So it's interesting to fail and to learn. Like for me, I have 3 kids. My middle child is my daughter, Hadley, and when she was little, she has beautiful hair. And my wife was so happy to have a daughter because she's like, oh gosh, I get to have a daughter, and she's so excited. But when it came time to doing her hair in the morning, I, for some reason, became the parent of choice from my daughter's perspective, and I was the only one allowed to do the ponytails. So my wife would go towards Hadley to do her ponytails. She'd be like, no, daddy, do it. And oh my gosh, did I get some side eye for that from my wife, right? But I, for some reason, was the guy, right? So I just learned how to do a ponytail. How do I know how to do a ponytail, right? I have no idea how to do this, but I became her choice. And for me, that was like a bonding moment for us because it was like on a regular basis that she would come to me with her little scrunchie. She's like, 4 years old and she wants me to do her hair. I'm like, this is so cool that I get to have an interaction with another human being, right? And they look to me as this thing. We have this thing between the two of us that no one else has. And I love that connection with our kids. And I wasn't prepared for it as a dad, to be quite honest. I'm like, now what? You get the baby to come home to the hospital and you're like, now what do I do? Right. But that connection builds over time and it brings these great moments to my dadness, I guess you could say, that lights me up. Like, what lights you up about your daughter?
It's funny you say that about the hair. Some skills that I have learned along my journey have been definitely that brushing and washing and braiding and all those things that you just kind of pick up and you figure out with patience and perseverance. So that's one of the things that we always do. I always try and be involved in that. And she's got very long, very curly blonde hair. So it's quite the challenge sometimes to brush it and style it.
Mm-hmm.
But I love to get involved in that. I love to get involved in everything and this is, I'm sure we're going to go down this path too, but I love to get involved in the non-typical masculine side of being a dad.
Okay,
and I say non-typical, but maybe it's more typical than it has been, years gone by. But what I would say is that kind of non-typical is, maybe go back to when I was a kid and my dad went to work all day and he didn't really engage in many non-masculine parts of parenting. He wasn't there for a lot of it because he was at work. And I just really wanted to make sure that I was there, especially having a daughter, that I was there for that. So, and she's very creative. She gets that from me. She loves art. So we love to paint nails and do designs on them and do her hair and color her hair. We dress up, we create, her dolls and her toys. And one of my favorite things I'd say that I've rediscovered, and I spoke about this recently on a podcast when I was asked what my kind of comfort thing was. And what I've come to realize the last couple of years is as she's 5.5. So in the last couple of years, she's really embraced art, drawing, coloring, and her favorite princesses, drawing pictures of all of her characters from Disney. And I've rediscovered this passion for art that I lost when I was probably a teenager. And life gets in the way, you forget about these things, and you don't have I didn't have a reason to draw and color, so I didn't. And she gave me that reason back. So one of my favorite things to do, and my wife is not, she'll do it, but she's self-proclaimed not a very good artist. So it goes to me, right? When she's like, she wants a picture of her favorite Disney princess, then that's dad's job. And that's one thing that I can do really, really well. And, and have rediscovered this passion, and it has opened up another side of me, which has also connected me more to her. So that is probably right now something I'm really trying to embrace and just really consciously trying to make time for in our days so we can do more of that.
Awesome. What are you looking forward to teaching your daughter? And part B, what are you looking forward to learning from your daughter?
Wow. Well, I've learned a lot so far. I love the quote that we teach our kids everything we know and they teach us everything else. So
wait,
so
say
true.
That. Do that again. Do it again. Do it again.
So we teach our kids everything we know and they teach us everything else.
I love it. I love it. Continue, please.
Yeah, she's definitely teaching me a lot about many things. And one thing I'm really keen to see is how it continues to improve my communication on a macro level. Yep. It's made me a way better coach.
Wow.
Which is great across over to your business and how successful you can be in what you do, because communicating, and anyone that's had or has a 5-year-old, it's not like communicating with a ready, willing, and able adult that wants to change something in their life. It's a very different conversation with a 5-year-old. However, you do come across people that sometimes through their challenges and their journey do act like 5-year-olds sometimes. And that's perfectly okay. Like, yeah, I get it. I act like a 5-year-old sometimes too. So it's learning how to navigate that and the kind of language you use and how you lean into getting them to come up with the solutions themselves. And then I realized, hey, I could be doing this much better as a coach. So I really look forward to this. I'm going to really regret saying this, but I look forward to moving into those teenage years where that navigation and those conversations become even more challenging, which they may or may not, but I'm assuming they will. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to learning more about those things. And I think deep down on a real selfish level, I'm really looking forward to teaching her more about movement and exercise and how, how incredible the body is. And we do that a fair bit anyway. She loves to dance. So we kind of express that through dance and movement. And we do lots of, as everyone's already heard, lots of Disney princess dance videos and stuff. But she started to pay a bit more of an interest in other movements that I do. I work out at home a lot. We have our studio in the basement, so she's exposed to it. And yeah, looking forward to using that. And if it looks like she's leaning towards dance and performing arts as something she really loves, and I can't wait to show her how she can use more traditional style fitness workouts, gym to support that and supplement that.
In addition to the amazing thoughts you've already shared so far with us, what has becoming a dad taught you about yourself that you weren't really, you're like surprised? You're like, oh my gosh, I never knew this about myself. I didn't know what I don't know. What have you learned?
I hope this is a 3-hour episode. There's lots of things. So what are some of the things? Wow, that's a tough one because there's so many. What have I learned about myself? I've learned that I can slow down and be more present.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than thinking that that's going to cause me to miss things, it's made me realize that it actually totally changes the experience and exposes you to way more, not less, which is the mindset I was in for 35 years or 30 years, I guess. So that's probably my biggest one, is it's really taught me that ability to slow down and be present. And to be honest, I don't think I really even knew what being present was until I became a parent.
Wow. Okay, so dads that are listening to this, they might have dads who are just going into the hospital this week to have their first baby. Maybe dads sitting on the couch, feeding their young one, listening to us today. What kind of messages would you give to a new dad at that very beginning to maybe set us on the right track? We're not always going to be successful as dads, but what can we do to be a little bit better right out of the gate?
The number one thing in my experience is, and I kind of touched on this already, but you have to be open to every challenge that parenting brings and embrace it as that. You're not going to do it perfectly. Like, shocker, no one's good at anything the first time they do it. If you hadn't figured that out already, then you've got that coming to you in your life at some point in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So we're never going to be great at it. And, we have to, pull some hair out while we're brushing. We have to drop our kids on their heads once. We have to, right? Yeah. I let her roll off the armchair once when she was about 6 months old.
Oh no. Yeah.
Right. You have to do those things. But if those things, we're too scared to engage in the process, right? If I wasn't able to take her, look after her, be with her, be responsible for her, which I was kind of doing, I guess, and she fell off the seat, but not quite in fully. But is it allow those things to happen, because those things are going to happen, right? And we just have to be mindful. However, I never let it happen again, right? I realized that they roll around a lot when they're small. So, but we have to be able to, if we're too scared to take on the challenges that those things bring, and then we're in that typical mindset, which I think we are as men a lot. And in my experience, a lot of men that I speak to and coach it's an all or nothing mentality. I'm going to be the best dad ever. And if you go in with that and, you are going to the hospital this week and I'm the best dad ever. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things in a row you get wrong, and then you check out, you're never going to be able to learn how to be present and experience those things. And trust me when I tell you, and I'm sure you can talk to this too, Dave, is you'll blink and there'll be 5, or you'll blink and there'll be 10. And you'll realize that you were too scared to get in there and make mistakes. And then it means you miss out.
Okay. So I'm going to do something interesting to you, Gareth. You ready? Like, oh gosh, where are we going with this? You're a podcaster, so you're used to this. I'm flipping the mic over to you now.
All right.
Welcome to Dad Space. You're now hosting. As a dad with a 5.5-year-old, what would you ask of somebody like me who's an empty nester? All three of my kids are moved on. What kind of question do you have for me as an empty nesting dad?
Oh,
Ooh, here we go.
this is fun. So I think for me, it's always going to be about those thoughts you have. So as present as we can be, I think in the back of our mind, we're always like, what's this going to be like when she's 10? What's this going to be like when she's 15, etc. So I guess for me, my biggest question is, how do you navigate a daughter, or maybe not how do you navigate, not the right question. Now I'm on the spot. I've got to think of the right way to phrase it. What would be your advice for me or anyone else with a young daughter? What things can you give us as tips, or what advice can you give us to navigate the teenage years of having a daughter? Because I can foresee, I've been a teenage boy. So I understand the dynamic. I know that, depending on who she chooses to have as a partner in her life, but how do you navigate that? I feel like it's something I think I'm ready for it. But at the same time, when those things start to happen, I feel like there's going to be a natural masculine response to those things. And I guess if there was a concern about the future, that would probably be one of them.
The great question. One thing I've noticed with my daughter specifically, and even with my boys too, I have two boys as well, is they get to a certain age and they start to pull away. And you can start to sense it, that snuggle time on the chair before bed, when they would curl up beside you and you read a book or something. They become fewer and fewer, and they become larger and larger because they're bigger humans. But you see a natural regression away as they try to find their identity. And as a dad, that hurts because you've had them for so long, so close. The bond is so strong, but you have to give them the space to become the people they want to become. But that loving support and that they know that even though they make mistakes in life, that you're still there, and your love for them is not determined by their actions, and their actions aren't a reflection of you as a dad. They're their own people. And that is a hard lesson to learn. And now that I sit in a home full of their stuff and they're not under my roof anymore, it's quite unnerving as a dad to not know exactly where your kids are today. What are they doing? And are they okay? You get the random texts here and there, but they're living life just like we did when we were young. And it's a really interesting feeling. I would love to go back to 5.5, Gareth. I would love it. But at the same time, I love seeing my kids find their way in the world and know that those lessons, those 20 years of 20 summers together and 20 birthdays together and 20 Christmases together and 20 events together have all led up to them finding their place in the world. That's exciting for me because their future is opening up in front of me, and it's exciting to see that. But I think the more you can build every day with your daughter and build that relationship, that's where the strength will come when it gets tested, when they get a little bit older. Because it will be tested.
That's really powerful. And you say, you mentioned so well about the building those bonds and keeping those connections and, and everything else that comes with it. I read a quote recently, and I've been trying my best to kind of wake up with this quote on my mind. And the quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it to some degree, but the quote went something along the lines of is when your small children ask you to play with them, just remind yourself that one day that will be the last time they ask.
Yeah.
And after, getting out of the pit of despair and, bawling my eyes out for a few minutes, I was like, I need to keep that so fresh in the front of my mind, because it's so easy to get distracted in life and, and not be present. And then, like you said, one day they're not going to want to read a book anymore. They're not going to want to sit on your knee, and you don't get that back.
Yeah. And it's it's sobering, to be quite honest, right? Because you never really fully anticipate it or plan for it. No matter how many things you read, how many podcasts you listen to, how many experts you speak to, one day it's going to be you. And I think again, go back to the bond, create that strong bond from day one, nurture it, and you will see it come back to you in many, many fantastic ways as a dad. So I applaud you because you are starting out with such a great mindset around raising your daughter, and it's inspiring to hear your journey. And I hope that dads that are listening are like, yeah, I can see myself in Gareth. I can see myself in this relationship, and look up to you, because that's you're setting the way, right, for your family, for you and your partner, your daughter. And I applaud you for that. It's amazing. What's your message to dads today as we kind of wrap up a little bit? What would you like to say to anybody listening, no matter where they are on the scale?
Yeah, I think number one, we as men on this planet, and dads specifically, we tend to put ourselves on an island a little bit. And the things that you are doing, and many other podcasters and people around the world are doing, is creating a space for permission to share, permission to hear. Somebody might hear this. Let's just say I'm going to pick a typically masculine job now. So no, don't chastise me for this, anyone listening. A builder on a building site that is in a particularly masculine place and maybe doesn't feel comfortable rocking up to work with their nails painted or with the hair clip their daughter gave them. And maybe doesn't want to share that with people and feels that kind of strips their masculinity away, and they don't want to share in those moments with their daughter, for example, or whatever the situation may be. Relate that to yourself when you're listening. Is know that, hopefully you'll listen to this, or someone will listen to this and say, hey, it's okay for me to do that because other people are doing it. Other people are showing up, as dads and embracing whatever it is. For me, it's that non-typical kind of masculinity and being okay with all those things. And I hope someone else can hear this and do that. And I guess the overriding message is surround yourself with people or with sources of media that also give you that permission.
Do the best with the knowledge you have. Love your family, love yourself, love your partner, love your community, build a community. And that's the best you can do, because, your kids one day will look back and go, my parents did a great job, but I'm going to do it this way, or I'm going to do it differently. And you can't be threatened by that, but you do your best with what you have. And that's all we can really offer, right?
Yeah. Keep doing your best. Keep, as I always like to say, be the best version of yourself. And then, that best version will keep getting better. You'll just continue to grow, and everyone around you will grow too.
Gareth Nock, you're on Dad Space. So happy to have you on, Gareth. Thank you for inspiring us today. Thank you for taking time out of your day. I hope you're looking forward to an evening with your daughter and all the great stuff that's coming up in the future. I know you're talking about camp and everything as well.
Yeah.
Enjoy your dad journey. And thank you for spending time with us. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's always nice to know that we're not alone on our journey, and there's other people out there that think like us, feel like us, and that can support us on that journey. So I appreciate everything you do. Appreciate the time to speak and share a little bit of my journey. And I hope that someone listening is inspired by what they heard.
Don't forget to go to the podcast, guys. And also the nookacademy.com. You got to go check them out. Get healthy, guys. We need healthy dads out there. And this is the person to go talk to. Gareth, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for listening to Dad Space today. Go check us out on all of our social media, YouTube, all that great stuff. You can find us as Dad Space Podcast. Real simple. Dad Space Podcast, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, even YouTube. Email us, dadspacepodcast@gmail.com. We're always looking for great guests to come on the podcast. If you have any feedback for us, let us know here at Dad Space. Looking forward to connecting with you on the next episode, right here of Dad Space. Follow us on your podcast app for more. Cheers. To you, Dad.